I always liken it to street busking, where it's like you see the guy on the street, he's got a Telecaster and a harmonica and a theremin, do this whole thing. That's what we get to do.
Right. And then you're hoping someone throws $1 in the jar.
It's
all you can ask for.
Just buy a ticket, man. Come on.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Brendan Bradley with the Fifth Wall Forum, committed to bringing together industry insiders from the theater and technology worlds to create opportunities for new kinds of virtual performance. And today I'm having a conversation with Stephen Butchko, a producer and performer of Ferryman Collective, and he tells me an aspiring heretic. Today's conversation is brought to you by the Fifth Wall Forum Discord channel, a robust community of hundreds of technologists and artists sharing job postings, tutorials, upcoming performances, and the home of Artifact Friday, where our mentors and collaborators share artifacts from their work, giving Fifth Wall Forum members a first glimpse of the latest in innovation and immersive storytelling. Find out more at our website at fifthwallforum.com. That's 5thwallforum.com. And we were actually in the middle of the conversation, and we were having such a great one that I was like, wait, we have to start recording. And so I'm now going to just dovetail us into the conversation that we were organically having.
Here we are. Yes. So that's what we need to figure out, is at the end of this, we get the chapters, whatever we do, we're able to reproduce it and reconceive it yet again as a Wolves in the Walls, as a Baba Yaga type thing, and then produce that. Then we'll have that passive income.
Or it's the Hamilton model. You know, they did the show, and then they filmed 6 shows of it and stitched it together over 3 years into the thing they sold to Disney Plus. So in all these shows that are reopening, like Waitress that just reopened, the reason the original cast is back in it for this month is so that they can film 6 shows of it from different angles and different camera movements and do a rehearsal when no one's in the audience, and they can put a thing on stage and stuff, so they can then turn around and sell that.
Cut it together cinematically and then...
Yeah. So we're all having to build the video on demand version.
Right. Watch out, Hamilton. Show. Here we come. Step aside. Respite is coming, baby.
But I don't think you're wrong. Like, there is a path towards a secondary video on demand. The question is...
Well, there has to be if we're going to if we're going to be able to market it and make anything off of it.
You guys, so we go to lunch.
I did hit record because we were talking about something so interesting that I was like, I'm sure there's sound bites in this.
There's something in there. There's something.
I mean, do you think that diminishes the experience?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it does. It takes, because it's such an intimate genre of storytelling that we're creating here. It's that live component where you get to step into a, quote, video game, but it's live people reacting to you.
Right. Because I think a lot of people think, well, I've seen a recording of a play before, and it's not as cool as being in the theater, but like, whatever, like, it's fine. And I don't think people truly understand, because so few people have actually put on the headset and had a immersive, responsive experience like this narratively, that I think most people just immediately conflate it with watching a recording of a play. Right. Versus the idea of, like, no, it's appointment driven. You have to be there because the story is built around you. You are actually influencing and affecting the outcomes. Even if you can't, like, choose it like a choose your own adventure, if Alex chooses to, draw or say something or respond differently than we're anticipating, we in Welcome to Respite have to go with that.
Yeah, for sure. That's part of the beauty of it. And that's part of why Deirdre and I even wanted to pursue this, is because of her experience doing the Underpresents and Tempest. She realized that, wait a minute, we're giving up certain things from in real life, but we're gaining other things doing this in virtual reality. And the common denominator is that we're still able to touch an audience intimately and emotionally. And that was her experience, and that was her continued theory that she wanted to test. So we did the proof of concept thing with Para, and it was more of a sci-fi, horror kind of experience. But then after Krampusnacht, we wanted to spend time really building something that we could take time with and raise the bar, something that would allow us to connect emotionally with an audience. And she kept thinking about Welcome to Respite, and we just got lucky because not only were we able to do that, we did it beyond what we thought we were able to do. It really resonates with audiences, especially the person playing Alex.
Sure.
That's been our experience. So there's certainly something there, and then reproduce it and turn it into something that's pre-recorded, like a Wolves in the Walls experience or something. That'll be something, and for archival purposes, and then for people to enjoy down the road whenever they want. That'll be great, but there will be a significant thing lost, I believe, because that interaction with live performers that don't play off of one another and what you're giving them.
Do you think that the video on demand version of experiences like this, if it was Welcome to Respite, would you be Alex, the first person, or would you be one of the alters that is watching the encounter with a quote-unquote audience member playing that role?
Are you talking about the royal you or
royal.
A preference?
Yeah, preference.
I would assume, and this is a conversation with the team to be had
Sure.
when we try to tackle these challenges and these ideas. But I immediately think that it is Alex, because that's the original show. The in real life production is about Alex, this 7-year-old child interacting with their parents, going back into this childhood memory, and that's the magic of it. But just from a curiosity standpoint, sure, yeah, you could be one of the alter ego roles and just kind of look around and follow it around, but I think the real magic there is Alex. But I'm interested to hear your experience with coming on board.
Oh, wow.
And what your experience is interacting with people that aren't necessarily performers, playing this Alex role, and how you interact with them as Michael, as Dad. What you're have you been surprised by?
I have not been surprised at all, but I'm a super weird human. So because I think my take on all this stuff has been, I come from such a weird constellation of performance background that I think in a lot of ways I've never had the normal quote unquote experience as an actor. Like, it's so rare that I've had the like standard, what we all think of as performing.
Proscenium stage,
like,
kind of.
My very first play as a teenager was in the round. So the first time I got on a proscenium stage, I was like, what do you mean I can't turn around? Like, what do you mean there's no audience back there?
How old were you?
I was 16. For me, it was already so skewed that like acting to me was this connectivity with my scene partners, and it was an audience participation show. It was a children's show that I did first.
I see.
So it was like I was rallying them up to like throw things and like tell me where the bad guy was hiding and stuff. And so this idea that you would then have this divorce from the audience felt so strange. And then moving beyond that, you know, as I started to work in very scrappy theater in New York and then get into like web series work and digital, where you have such a defined relationship with your audience, right? Like, they are in the comments telling you often very toxic, terrible things that have nothing to do with the story that they just seen. But like, it's one of those things that I don't think anyone can truly, until you've done it, creating in a vacuum is such a beautiful thing when you have the true like incubation time or workshop time, or like as a writer, I love just like going away and writing for a week, but you don't have that when you're creating reactively or responsively in most digital platforms, most digital media, especially if it's live or in any way interactive. And so my journey of coming to this work is from this constant feedback loop, this constant dialogue. I mean, every art has dialogue with its audience. That is the value of it. But I think our dialogue is a lot louder and is a lot more immediate. And specifically when it comes to VR, so there's this great radio producer named Eric Scott Smith, who's one of my best friends. When he saw early YouTube, he said, that isn't TV, that's radio. That's morning radio. And more and more and more, as these mediums have gotten more immediate with their audience, I totally understand that we are basically creating characters on a morning show that's loosely scripted. We know the story points we want to hit. We have the call to actions we need to reach. We have the time clock that we've got to hit, like at 7 o'clock, we got to go to break. And then we have the callers. And those callers can do anything they want to the show. And in many ways, they like derailing the show. They like creating their own identity. They want to bring their own anecdote to their own experience. And when you try to control that in the world of podcasting or radio or live streaming, when you try to control the audience, it's game over. But when you embrace that that is the show, that's why we're here, then that, I believe, is the true connection that we're all describing and that we're all seeking. Right. And so in Welcome to Respite specifically, I remember one of my kind of dress rehearsal preview shows that we were doing with test audiences.
You mean one of the two?
One of the two.
You get like 10 minutes to prepare and learn the damn thing.
One of those, we had somebody who was a very hyperactive and rather disruptive Alex. And because, for those that don't know, we are simultaneously, I've got a headset on, I have a microphone plugged into the headset that I'm talking into for my voice inside of VR, and then I have an earphone so I can hear inside of VR. And then in my left ear is a Bluetooth headphone to my phone in Discord so I can communicate with stage management and my fellow actor offline.
So it's a completely natural
totally natural performance, exactly. Yeah. But what that means is we can communicate with each other almost like backstage whisper, like, you got to set my prop, all right, like you now. Which is great. It feels very theatrical, but there was a lot of conversation around how frustrating this person was being. I didn't receive any of that. I thought this guy was having the time of his life and probably didn't know how to process the intimacy of this experience, because it is kind of weird. Like, my mom and dad are talking to me. Right. And if I have any sort of trauma in my past, this is bubbling up some weird stuff that I haven't really dealt with. And here it comes. And I'm dealing with a technology that, like, it might be lagging, or I got to reset my headset, or I'm getting hot, I'm getting turned around, I'm getting dizzy. All of that to me felt like a caller on a live show. And yes, it was derailing a little bit, but I also knew that it was the best content ever because no one knew what was about to happen. We were all so on the tightrope without a net. And that is why we do it. And so for me, ultimately it's theirs. It's their show, which is so cool. The other side of that is what you all could control and did so beautifully and so thoughtfully, was onboarding us to your process, not just to the show, but to your process playing dad. You taught me how to be Michael. You taught me how you designed and developed all the research and the homework and the choices that you discovered to play Michael inside this system was such a gift. And it reminded me of, in the medical world, they employ actors for what are called standardized patients. Yeah. Where we all learn to play the same patient with the same symptoms, the same backstory, so that we can then train and test doctors on patient care. And that means there is still that variability in it. Like, I've been a part of some weird stuff that doctors have done that I'm really glad they didn't do to real patients. Because it's like, nope, you failed. But what's cool about that is we're all co-parenting this character and doing it through a standardized lens, which allows us to all bring our individual craft, but also make sure that it's a codified experience. Right. And so that was such a gift that you all, I think, brought to the virtual reality process.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's that's the beauty of doing this work, this immersive kind of live theater, that it allows for the improv, but also the sort of scripted narrative element of it, so we can keep it on the rails. But you were talking about the audience members, that you never know what they're going to do,
right?
And you can't control them, and nor do you really, want to control them to a certain point. I guess you have to, so things don't get completely crazy. But there's a screaming cat. That's what they do. That's the audience. They scream.
The audience just screams.
That's it. Puts the lotion on its skin.
It's a very different podcast.
But that's the beauty of it. It makes the performances grounded and sincere, and it is that authenticity of life that we achieve to bring to any performance. And then not knowing who our Alex is going to be it keeps us on our toes. Once we're comfortable, this is what we've found, Deirdre and I playing the roles, is that it's allowed us, okay, once we know the cues and the thing that all you guys learned, that we kind of imparted on how we kind of approach this thing is, okay, once you know the point A to point B, now we can just take a breath, relax, and then allow ourselves to go off script depending on what that particular Alex is giving us. Other times, I think, like you were just describing, we've had Alexes that we've had to be a little harsh with and say, no, we're going to have dinner now.
But your parents, so it all fits in the narrative.
We get to do it all, exactly.
Can you describe your first aha moment in, not necessarily Welcome to Respite, but just in VR, seeing what the combination of a system and being live could do and facilitate?
Yeah, that would... I can't point to a specific moment, but when I was able to come on board and start producing some of these things with Brian and Braden and Deirdre, Para was our first show, and when I got in there, I started interacting with the audience members, and I realized that there's... people are receptive to this once you're in the world, even though we build these things for Quest, a 50 megabyte limit, so we're kind of limited to visually what we get to build.
50 is pretty generous. I don't know.
50.
I'm working on 15.
Well, yeah, we got a generous 50 megabytes, and so, but that's okay because our minds fill in the gaps. Once we get into the world, we're sort of we are immersed in this three-dimensional world, and we accept it as that's the playing field, and this is our new reality. And people just, for the most part, accept it. Emotionally, I discovered that the first time, because we weren't hugging people in Para or Krampusnacht, but
you're grabbing them and snatching them
exactly, shaking, tearing them asunder. In Respite, the first time where I went in to hug Alex, it's strange because we are, of course, we're avatars, and we go through them if you try to hug, touch. But still, if we go through those motions, our bodies and our muscle memory knows that, and it still triggers this limbic sort of response. And there is a reality to it, and we remember and we know. And that's when I really realized, wow, we are onto something. And I understand completely why Deirdre wanted to approach Lindsay Scoggin, our director and the artistic director of the in real life version. This is can be a medium to connect quite a bit with people, or scare the hell out of them, depending on what it is.
That is a version of connection,
yeah,
though.
It certainly is with Krampusnacht. And there's people that are sincerely scared and of stuff like that, and I don't have I don't share those feelings, because to me, I get in there, it's like, yep, it's a digital world and we're doing this thing, but we're generally on that side of these storytelling experiences, and so
does the animation ever fade away for you?
Some of the quote magic is gone, because and I know that you experience this too, because you are Michael, but as we are part of the cast and crew, we have a whole different experience than the audience members playing the alter egos or Alex, because they just see the house, they just see the stuff that's happening behind the scenes. You and I, we get the pleasure of manipulating all the cards and the switches that Andy Aloisio has built for us.
For those that don't know, can you describe what it looks like to see the world covered in UI?
It's crazy. It's kind of like just driving down any street in LA and having billboards, being faced with all of that.
But like Minority Report,
yes,
you can touch on them and they interact with
it
you.
is Minority Report in a 50 megabyte world. But yeah, our code guy Andy Aloisio and programmer, he has helped us so much behind the scenes by building out the way that the actors interact with the world, because the show is built for two actors to be able to run.
Yeah.
The actors playing mom and dad do run the show. And from the moment that we get into the world and we start bringing the audience members in, we're able to trigger panels, that appear for us. Sometimes they are global, so everybody can see them, but there's a whole host of switches and panels that are always floating around us that nobody else sees. There's also Andy built triggerable controls that we can just click on a joystick and another panel will pop up in front of us that will allow us to teleport through different parts of the environment when we need to. And so it's kind of a neat experience. We have a lot of control over that. How was your experience getting to learn all of that? I know it was probably not as complicated as some of the things that you've had to learn in VR, but
two things. First of all, I've stolen this from you all. Oops. Is that like in writing my own next VR piece, I've used your script format because it includes simultaneously the formatting similar to a play of how the dialogue works and the action, but then it includes the cueing. The cueing is built into the script, and you used color codes and things like that. So it's a really elegant way to literally have a snapshot of the entire responsibility that the actor has to go through. And so even just sitting on the couch unwinding, go beat for beat, almost like a paper tech, through the whole show and remember, that line I keep flubbing, or, there's that moment, or, that Alex interaction is supposed to come here and that moment. Right. It's so elegantly done. I was curious, did all of that come out of rehearsals? So when those things, those UI panels that I'm grabbing or cueing through the show, they feel so lovely, at least native to me in my muscle memory of like, I would put this thing down here and trigger this panel so it looks like I turned that thing on. Yeah. Did that come out of rehearsals, or did someone just put those UI elements there and then you had to make sense of them as dad and then taught that to us?
Yeah. Andy, a.k.a. Joker, he works at night, and then we wake up the next day and we get into this world and all this stuff is there. No, we were sans Andy for the first two shows, and we didn't have this complex of a behind the scenes.
Oh, wow. So how were
system.
Things triggered?
They were triggered. Well, Brian was the guy that did all that, because Brian
kind of like a traditional stage manager in the booth.
Brian Tull, for Para, Brian Tull, he built the worlds for this main structure and foundation of all the worlds for all the shows. And for Para, we had we called it the Crow's Nest. And so our green room for the performers and stage managers and all that was up above.
Right.
And so we got to look down on this
like
this Mount Olympus Cronenberg-esque horror show that was happening below us. But as an audience member, once you're down below, you look up and you just see the ceiling and all that. But we could see everything. Like there were certain triggers and cues and boxes that we would hit to trigger certain things. And with each show that we did and do, and as you know this, it's every time we build on what we've learned from the previous show, and we hopefully make different mistakes the next time. But we were so lucky with Welcome to Respite. It was just, we're so grateful that we were able to somehow put lightning in a bottle, because we were able to acquire such talent. We have a great talented cast and crew to begin with, but then, we knew Joker from the Orange Bucket troupe.
Mm-hmm. Which is a group in Rec Room that's been doing live theater for the last 2 years.
Right. So we met those guys. We all there's not that many people doing what we're all doing, and we all kind of know each other and support one another. So, and then we met Screaming Color, Christopher Lane Davis, and tooling around with them in VR chat, world hopping and stuff. And you get to talk to these people, and then we talk about, we were just doing a show and you ought to come see it. And then we were slowly sort of tentacles. Bring them in and then just say, so what are you doing? And so Andy was interested to come on board and help things out. And these people have been there through our entire rehearsal process, and that's part of Andy. We're all learning together every time, and so Andy would be there for all the rehearsals and see how we're performing and staging the thing and creating our blocking. And then he goes away and he'll say, here's what I did, because I know that at this point in the show you guys need to be able to do this, so I built this here panel. This will make it easier for you to do this. So
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Really is.
So you say you want to always hopefully be improving on the next thing. What do you think is that next hurdle or that next challenge that you're hoping to tackle, either creatively or administratively or technically?
All of it. We just need to get better at all of it. A huge challenge that we're continuing to hopefully streamline is the onboarding process, especially for VR chat.
Yeah.
Because the Oculus Quest is now more affordable for more people, and more people are becoming familiar with VR and want to see what we're all doing, which is great. And we're trying to help them as much as possible, as painlessly as possible, get to us. But VR chat can be a harsh mistress.
Yes.
When you're new to it. And we have to be cognizant of that, of our audiences, that they're new to this.
Yeah.
And it can be very difficult to know the tricks to get into VR chat and deal with the quirkiness of it for the first time. And so there's always a streamlining that we're trying to improve upon, the getting people into the world, sort of get them in the feel and of the show and in that world, losing where they're at. From a performance end, it's always every performance I'm trying to learn more about how to be a better performer and a more sincere performer. And with what we're doing now in VR, we talked about it a little earlier. It's like I always liken it to street busking, where it's like you see the guy on the street he's got a Telecaster and a harmonica and a theremin and a washboard on his back and a drum, and he gets to do this whole thing. That's what we get to do.
Right. And then you're hoping someone throws $1 in the jar.
It's
like all you can ask for.
Just buy a ticket, man. Come on. It's continuing to learn how to perform with all that technology and make the show go seamlessly, but then also deliver a grounded, sincere performance with the Alex that we have, or the audience member that isn't necessarily a trained performer, and they're doing what they do, and we get to work within that. They don't know the script. They're creating the script, and we get to do a lot of yes-anding.
Yeah.
And then eventually bring it back around to, okay, we have to finish the show at some point. So,
as someone who got thrown in the deep end like that, can you, for anyone out there listening who wants to kind of get in for the first time as a performer, what do you think is that first toe that someone might be able to dip, or where would you guide someone towards first kind of testing those waters?
Get into the headset, borrow a headset, steal one, whatever you have to do to get in one, learn how to get into the worlds, and then become familiar with the different platforms that are out there, and like VR chat, Altspace, Rec Room. There's different platforms that they all kind of do the same thing, but they're all different. Learn how to enter those worlds, work within them, get to know the mechanics of controllers and how these different worlds work, and you'll eventually find people that you want to work with.
If people want to find you, how do they get a hold of you?
Oh, you can email me at info@ferrymancollective.com. You can also email me at sgbutchko@gmail.com. Go to theseverancetheory.com to learn more information about our show.
Great. Steve, thanks so much for sitting down with me.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Thanks so much to Steve Butchko for the conversation. If you want to join me on the show, find me online at the handle Brendan A. Bradley, or go to Fifth Wall Forum to find out more. I'm Brendan Bradley, wishing you a happy Friday, and I'll see you next time.